Hi guys, hope everyone is well. So in this particular video, I want to speak about two topics. The first being net present value, of which I've spoken about at length in a previous video. Please go and check that video out, guys. The title of the video is How to Grow Your Small Business in 2018 Net Present Value Exercise. So please, guys, just go and check that video out. It's on the channel now, and I've spoken about net present value at length. So I won't really be speaking about net present value in this particular video. I'll just touch on it, but I won't really be speaking to it very much deep. And then I also want to speak about the internal rate of return, how it can be useful, and when to use it. But first, guys, as you can see here on your screen, we've been provided a bunch of information as it relates to years, as it relates to rates, as it relates to the present value, net present value, as well as the internal rate of return. As you can see here, guys, we have two frying machines. We have frying machine A as well as frying machine B. And what we basically have to do, guys, is with the aid of the net present value formula as well as the internal rate of return, is to basically do those calculations with the aid of those formulas and then arrive at some sort of conclusion and justification as to which of these frying machines is the better investment, as to which frying machine between frying machine A as well as frying machine B is the better frying machine to buy. So I'm not sure if you guys remember Usipho. I'm talking about this guy who had a business idea. He wants to sell a kota next to the taxi rank in his neighborhood. So let's just basically say, for all intents purposes, that Usipho has now opened his business and has been in operation for at least 2 years, and he wants to grow his business by 5% revenue. But first, in order to do that, he has to invest in a frying machine so that he can basically produce more kotas, he can have more production, and as a result of that, he can sell more kotas and generate a better profit, 5% of revenue. So first and foremost, guys, we are going to have to calculate our present value for each of these machines, after which we will then calculate our net present value for each of these machines, and then lastly we are going to calculate the internal rate of return for each of these frying machines. Okay, so first and foremost, what is net present value? As I've mentioned before, guys, that I've spoken at length about net present value in a previous video, but I'm going to touch on it here just briefly. So what net present value does is basically it discounts our cash inflows. It discounts our cash inflows so that we can know how much they are in value in the present, how much they are today. As you can see that we have cash flows ranging from year 1 all the way to year 5. So when we calculate the present value, the net present value, we are trying to discount these cash flows into the present. These cash flows are in the future. We want to find out how much they are worth today. By the way, guys, these cash flows are basically our profits. So let's say in year 1 we are going to have a profit of 6,000, or we are going to generate a profit of 6,000 for frying machine A. In year 2, 4,000. In year 3, 4.2. In year 4, 3.3. And then lastly in year 5, 5.5. This as it relates to frying machine A. And then for frying machine B, in year 1, our profits will be 3.5. In year 2, it will be 2.9. In year 3, it will be 1.4. Year 4, 1.2. And then in year 5, it will be 3,000 Rand. So when we are calculating the net present value, we are trying to discount these cash flows, which are in the future, by the way, into the present. So that's what net present value does. And then guys, we have our rate here. This rate of 12% is the cost of capital. Let's just say to finance the buying of either frying machine A or frying machine B, we are going to be taking out a loan on which we are going to be paying an interest of 12% per annum. So we have to compare apples with apples. We have to compare rates which are the same so that the exercise that we are embarking on now makes sense and we are able to arrive at the correct decision. Okay, so let's begin calculating our present value. So we're just going to plug in our formula here, guys. It goes equals NPV, open brackets. Our rate here, guys, our rate is 12%. And then we are going to be discounting cash flows from year 1 all the way to year 5. We don't need to discount this. This figure represents a cash outflow. This is the money that uSipho, as well as this money, this 14,000 Rand, as well as this 9,000 Rand. And you can see, guys, that it's negative. This money uSipho has to set aside so that he can buy either frying machine A or frying machine B. And then we close our brackets and then we hit enter. And then our discounted cash flows are 16,753 rands for frying machine B. Let's do the same for frying machine A, sorry guys. Let's do the same now for frying machine B. Equals NPV, open brackets, our rate is 12%, and then our discounted cash flows all the way from year 1 all the way down to year 5, close brackets, enter. We have 8,898 rands. Okay, cool. Now we need to find the net present value. And basically the net present value is our discounted cash flows, is the difference in our discounted cash flows and our initial investments, the money that we are going to be setting aside. So equals this figure, which is our initial investments, the money we are going to be setting aside, plus our discounted cash flows, equals. As you can see, guys, we have a net present value for frying machine A, which is positive at 2,753 Rand. Let me just change the color of this figure. Since it's positive, let me make it green. Okay, cool. Now let's do the same for frying machine B, equals our initial investments, which is negative, plus our discounted cash flows. As you can see, guys, that for frying machine B, our net present value is actually negative. Our net present value is negative. Let me change the color of this cell to red. So just from face value, guys, I would say that before even calculating the internal rate of return, I would say that frying machine A seems to be the better investment in comparison to frying machine B, since the net present value is positive for frying machine A and the net present value is negative for frying machine B. And then let's now calculate the internal rate of return. Equals. Oh, before we calculate it, guys, firstly, let me just give a brief explanation of what it is and how it can be useful. So most of your medium to big businesses use the internal rate of return when they are faced with investment opportunities. So they basically use this formula to see if a particular investment will be profitable and will be worthwhile. And that's basically what the internal rate of return is used for. It's a tool used to measure how profitable a potential investment such as this one will be. So our formula is equals IRR, open bracket. And for our internal rate of return, we are going to be discounting basically or inserting all of our cash flows, both our cash inflows as well as our cash outflows. Enter. We are going to do the same for frying machine B, open brackets, all of our cash flows. Enter. And as you can see, guys, that for frying machine A, our internal rate of return is greater than our rate for our cost of capital, than our cost of capital rate. So let me just change this cell to green. And then let me change this cell to red, because as you can see, guys, that our internal rate of return for frying machine B is 11%, and it's actually less than our cost of capital rate, which is sitting at 12%. So for me, I would basically advise Usipo that if Usipo wants to grow at 5% revenue, he has to buy frying machine A, simply because it has a positive net present value, and also it has an internal rate of return which is greater, than the cost of capital that he will be using to finance the buying of frying machine A. That's it, guys. That's it. I hope you guys found this video useful. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to attach a link of this particular spreadsheet under this video. Again, guys, please go and check out the video on net present value. I spoke about it at length. Okay, cheers, guys. Thank you.